What happens when we die? Do we simply cease to be? Or do we survive in some form? What is it that makes us unique, conscious beings? It's the greatest mystery of existence, a problem seemingly too big for science to solve. Christians and Muslims believe in a heaven for the just and a hell for sinners. Other religions see death as a transition to an existence on a higher plane, or to another life here on earth. All of these beliefs have one thing in common. The body is just a vessel for the soul, and the soul is eternal. Eben Alexander taught and performed neurosurgery at the Harvard Medical School for 15 years. In 2008, his career took an unexpected turn, one that would give him profound insight into the possibility of life after death. He contracted an extremely rare form of bacterial meningitis and fell into a deep coma.
I think if you were trying to come up with an experimental model that would best approach human death, meningitis is perfect, because what it does is it attacks the entire outer surface of the brain. These are horizontal images taken through my skull, and you can see the entire outer surface of the brain was coated with pus. These bacteria had gotten rid of all the glucose, and now the only thing left to consume were my brain cells. And so my entire neocortex, that part of the brain that makes us human, was completely shut down.
After 7 days of virtual brain death, Alexander emerged from the coma. Miraculously, within a month, he was back to normal. But something happened to him while he was away.
My first recollection from deep inside the coma was that it's what I sometimes call the earthworm eye view of the world. Everything was kind of murky, brown, red, dark. I literally remember roots over my head, and I seemed to be there for a very, very long time. I had no memory whatsoever of my life, no words, my language was gone. I was certainly not aware of anything going on around me in the ICU room. And then in the midst of that, there was a little melody that was spinning in front of me, and it just started spinning and expanded. And it ended up clearing away all that ugly, foreboding, gross, muddy realm. And all of a sudden, I was coming up into this beautiful meadow. I had no body awareness. I had no arms, legs, or anything, but I was aware that I was a speck on a butterfly wing. Absolutely beautiful butterfly. And there were millions of other colorful butterflies looping and swirling all around us, all in this beautiful formation of flying. And then we left this universe and went out into what I now call the core. At first it seemed infinitely huge and dark, although I was there with that beautiful, warm awareness of the divine, which was clearly what we would call God, in this place outside the universe. Basically, I recall the whole multiverse being out in front of me. It was very clear that love was a huge part of the constituent of that whole multiverse.
Alexander had faced something that tens of thousands of people have reported: a near-death experience. Nearly all claim something that science has so far been unable to prove, that there is another existence beyond the one we know.
This was something that was very difficult for me to explain from a neuroscientific standpoint, and the scientific side of me could not see how that could be, and yet it was a very, very powerful memory. I came up with several models having to do with neurophysiology and neuroanatomy, and the problem is none of those models sufficiently explain the very powerful memories that I brought back with me from this experience. And I ended up at a point where I do not believe that there is a good neurophysiologic explanation for what happened to me.
Eben Alexander's experience was profound and life-altering, but it is by no means unique. Bruce Grayson is a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. He has investigated more than 1,000 cases of near-death experiences.
The consistent features of a near-death experience are a sense of profound peace and well-being, a sense of leaving the physical body, a sense of brilliant light, which seems to radiate warmth and unconditional love. Sometimes people report encountering other beings, including a deity of some kind. Sometimes they identify that deity as God or Christ, and sometimes they don't. They just say that there was this all-powerful being that they met.
Many scientists dismiss these experiences as nothing more than hallucinations triggered by a brain undergoing immense physical stress, mostly due to the nerve cells being deprived of oxygen. Back in the 1970s, experiments by the U.S. Air Force inadvertently tested this idea. Scientists spun pilots in a centrifuge, subjecting their bodies to massive G-forces. It caused blood to drain to their feet and left their brains starved for oxygen. They invariably blacked out. When they awoke, some pilots reported seeing a bright light. Others said they left their bodies and looked down at themselves from above. Experiences similar to those of people who have been to the brink of death, but lacking one key feature.
In the period when they were losing oxygen, as they were losing consciousness, they had some features which bear some similarity to near-death experiences. However, they certainly didn't ever meet deceased loved ones or other entities. The problem with all of these physiological explanations is that they don't account for the complex thinking, the memory formation, the perceptions that take place when we know the brain is not capable of doing complex thinking.
Are near-death experiences the final dream of a mind that's about to wink out of existence? Or are they a sign that there is something beyond death? Is the soul a myth, or one of the fundamental elements of the universe?
If you take these near-death experiences at face value, then they suggest that the mind or the consciousness seems to function without the physical body.
I think the quantum approach to consciousness can, in principle, explain why we're here and what our purpose is, and also the possibility of life after death and reincarnation and the persistence of consciousness after our bodies give up.
I have great belief and knowledge that there is a wonderful existence for our souls outside of this earthly realm, and that is our true reality. And we all find that out when we leave this earth.